Hello, my Aloha tribe, and welcome to the Aloha Perspective, where you get a little bit of something and a whole lot of everything. Happy Wednesday. It is hump day, and we're on Self-Care Wednesday. I had something I said I had prepared. I said, oh, it's so cute, and this and that and the other. And then I realized that, we had a really good conversation yesterday, on the show. And we talked about kind of the gender inequality that goes on between men and women. And it was kind of like, why is it if a man goes gray, he's the silver fox, but if a woman goes gray, she's, brave and courageous, right? So I was thinking about that last night, and then I thought, something I shared on Twitter the other day from Got to Get Out of, the account Got to Get Out of, which is also known as Unforgiven Warrior, I Became Stuart Thompson. This is one of the accounts that really helped me early on in my journey, as well as starting a new 13. Those are two accounts that really helped me. But Unforgiven Warrior, he's a gentleman who has been through a lot and whatnot, and now he heads a program. But it was about men's mental health. And I want to talk about that today. Men's mental health should be acknowledged too. And, I think women get it. A lot of women sit there and they try to talk to people, and they sit there and tell them, hey, look, maybe, and then they're just like, no, that's not me. That's not me. And it may not be, but you never know until you see someone professionally. Depression is a wild thing. I mean, you have what I call the run-of-the-mill depression, and by that I mean, or the common people depression, which is really just kind of the common people blues, right? It's a situational event. It doesn't last forever, and you move on, but it's still a type of depression. And I mean, that's my own terminology for it. And then you have, of course, your standard depression, which can be hereditary. I know a lot of people say they don't know if it is or not, but I really think it is. It's ingrained in the DNA and the genes and all that stuff. And it's up to us to break those cycles, right? I mean, I really do believe that there's a lot of magical things we can do with our body. I mean, think about it. We only use 10% of our brain, and all these super duper smart people probably use a lot more than that. But I mean, the average human basically uses about 10% of their brain. So imagine what we could do if we used all of it. I know. If we just expanded our minds and believed beyond what we were taught to believe beyond, what we think, what is tangible, right? What we can touch. 100 years ago, the thought of getting to the moon was just a dream, just a thought. Less than 60 years ago, it happened. Basically, it's amazing. It's amazing what can happen. We talked a little bit yesterday about how a lot of the baby boomers created much of the technology that, that we use now, that it's either been built on by other people, but they laid that foundation, right? I mean, somebody out there made that supercomputer that was the size of a room that helped send people into space. So, it's these things. What can we do if we move out of our own ways? And part of that problem is that, we don't acknowledge men's mental health. So I'm going to read through the meme I shared, from Unforgiven Warrior. And then I'm going to go over some stats that I found very, very interesting. Because, I wish I would have done a little more homework on this, and it was really kind of a last minute decision to do this since it is Self-Care Wednesday. But since we did talk yesterday about the gender equalities, and I think we need to talk about this too, because, people always put it on the women as being the ones with the mental health issues. I mean, women have postpartum, not every woman, but a lot of women have postpartum depression, and it can go really rogue, right? I mean, you've had some people in the news in the last 20 some odd years that have, like the one lady, I can't think of her name right now, from Texas, who drowned her children to save them. And turns out she was really in a deep postpartum depression that had gone undiagnosed. and it just, oh, it's the baby blues. Sometimes it's more than the baby blues, especially if, you have this ingrained in you. But a guy goes and shoots up a school and it's mental health. And yet the men don't want to get help. And I think a big part of that is because we stigmatize it. I talked yesterday about how my mom really kind of stigmatized mental health, right? How it was kind of like, we don't do that. We're stronger than that, blah, blah, blah. And so, there are times when it does hit the women differently. But for the most part, especially in different cultures, we say different cultures, but I'm going to say no. I think just men in general, because there are a lot of men I know that, just don't. They don't, because, it's almost like it's emasculating or something. But I'm telling you, it's not. To really come into tune with your mental health will make you one of the strongest people you will ever know. And I'm not just saying that because I'm a girl, and coming in to, just finally acknowledging my own mental health was one of the best days of my life. It was like being reborn, because I finally, let go of my own stigmas and embraced it. So let's see. Let's talk about the meme first. Men's mental health should be acknowledged too. All right. Men have panic attacks. Men have trauma. Men cry. Men feel emotional. Men self-harm and self-sabotage. Men have eating disorders. Men are abused, sexual, physical, and emotional. Men have insecurities. Men have body issues. Men go to therapy. Men deserve love and care. Men deserve support. What does that sound like? That sounds like somebody took a meme for a woman and took off the WO, right? Because we're human. It doesn't matter how you identify, all right? I know I'm trying to be sensitive here to everyone across the board. It doesn't matter how you identify gender-wise. Mental health is for everybody. And we need to stop stigmatizing it, because there could be a lot of people out there that are just falling apart because they feel like they need to be the strongest person for the family. Now, if you're, I know this feels like it's geared to men, but this is really kind of geared to everybody. When I get into the statistics, that is more about the men. But people, let's change it to this. People have panic attacks. People have trauma. People cry. People feel emotional. People self-harm and self-sabotage. People have eating disorders. People are abused sexually, physically, and emotionally. People have insecurities. People have body issues. People go to therapy. People deserve love and care, and people deserve support. So why is it that it's always a man or a woman? Now, again, I'm going to preface this with, I am not a trained professional. These are things I go through. These are things I've seen. These are conversations I've had with people. These are some of my experiences of dealing with men who have needed probably some kind of mental health care or support in their own way, but kind of shunned it because, they thought, oh God, no, that's not me. And while we say a lot of that is cultural, to be honest with you, I think a lot of that is more generational. It's more generational. We stigmatize the hell out of everything because that's how it was. That's, we, you didn't talk about it. You didn't, you just shoved it down deep, suppressed it, and didn't bother because you just had to go about your day and you had to survive. You had to be the one to shoulder the load, carry the load, to be the one to, just, sorry, there's a hummingbird outside the window, squirrel, to be the one that just really had to kind of be the pack mule, right? You're the one that had to shoulder all the burdens, whether you were, again, no matter how you identify. And a lot of that will cause people to not get help because they'll think, well, I don't have time. I don't have this. I don't have that. Here's the thing. Somebody who is amazing and wise out there, and I don't know who they are to thank for this, but they created online therapy. My own therapist, before I graduated, she had, she told me, if you're ever not feeling well or you ever just don't want to drive in or whatever, we can do this online. We can do, there's phone and webcam therapy now. Okay. You don't even have to be seen in a therapist's office. When I would go to my therapist's office, there was one therapist's office where, there were very minimal people in the waiting room, but you always exited out a different door. So it's like you're coming out of a door that's unmarked, so if somebody sees you in the hallway, oh, they don't know, and I find that that's less and less. The last couple of times I've been to therapy, you're just sitting in a room with a bunch of people, and I have to tell you though, and in my last bout of therapy, there were some younger people that looked very uncomfortable. Like, they were kind of looking around like they were going to be judged. And it's like, I always wanted to tell them, I'm not going to judge you. We're all here for the same reason. We're all here because something's broken in here or something's fractured and we need it fixed. So because of that, and a lot of times too, it wasn't always the boys that looked uncomfortable. Some of the teenage girls did too, and there's probably a myriad of reasons why any of them looked uncomfortable. But, then you would just see like some of us who were a bit older and we would just kind of sit there and be like, oh yeah, okay, it's therapy. But we really don't acknowledge or talk about men's mental health. So again, for Self-Care Wednesday, this is why I really wanted to touch base with this, because I think, like when I talked about the woman who had the bad postpartum in Texas and, and drowned her children, it was a very sad case. It was a very sad thing. But let's think about it again too. Back then, even in the early 2000s, the late 90s, I can't remember exactly when it happened, we didn't talk about mental health as much as we do now, across the board, no matter how you identify gender-wise. We didn't talk about it because it was so stigmatized. So imagine what our parents must have gone through. You really had you had to be brave, right? You had to be really brave to just kind of face your mental health issues because you were going to get judged. Sadly, it was true. I got judged very early on, and that was the 90s. So, that's only 30 something years ago. So, this is why we're here to break that stigma, to end that stigma. So here's some stats that I wrote down. Approximately 1 in 10 men experience depression or anxiety. Fewer than half receive treatment. Each year, 4 times more men take their own lives than a woman. Over 6 million men suffer from depression per year, but male depression goes undiagnosed. Globally, men are less likely to be diagnosed with a mental health condition compared to a woman. And a lot of this, I did write down at the end that it was stigma and cultural attitudes. I do believe that cultural attitudes are a big, big thing. Okay, but it's not just cultural attitudes. It is just a stigma that goes around amongst everybody. Cultural attitudes could make it worse. It could, really kind of intensify the whole idea. Imagine the cultural attitudes towards our LGBTQ communities, right? Like, no, in some places it is a serious offense. And, in other places you're just going to be judge the hell out of you. And why? Because we've stigmatized that too. These people just want to live their lives. Let them live their lives. Okay. Let them be who they want to be. They just let them be. And, I'm going to focus, since it is Pride Month, and, I really am a proud ally. I have a lot of gay friends, a lot of LGBTQ friends. And yeah, I can't imagine a world without them. I really can't imagine a world without them. So I am definitely an ally to the community. So I'm gonna focus some things, and we'll talk a little bit about some Pride stuff this month. All right. So I promise I'm gonna make it a point to talk about that. But maybe next week we'll talk about the LGBT community and mental health. I can't imagine how many people there's a meme that goes around, about how we should just love one another because, imagine there's somebody out there who thinks they'd be better off. The world would be better off without them. And that's not true. That's not true. I have faced my own mortality a few times. Once not by choice when I had my heart surgery, and 3 times by choice. And you know, you just sit there and your whole life flashes before your eyes and you're just kind of like, you know. And oh, good morning, Jamie. I am in San Diego. Dad has had some health issues, so I have been here taking care of him. So yeah, I am not home. I'm at the other home. I'm at my childhood home. So, but yeah, so I really want people to think about these things, okay? Let's just run over the other things. Men have panic attacks. Like anybody, when, you know, we don't understand. Oh, no, sorry, she's in San Diego too. This is great. I'm not sure why you're here, but I am excited that you are here. Oh, okay, I will. I think I still have your number. All right. Anyways, sorry guys. So men have panic attacks, okay? Men have trauma, but a lot of times they will not talk about their trauma. They will not talk about, you know, because I don't know, I'm not a man, so it's hard for me to talk about what it must be like on their end, you know, because there is so much more placed on a man than a woman. And, you know, I mean, the women have to carry a lot of the physical load, but the men are always told, we don't cry, we don't do this, men don't cry, you know, this, that, and the other. And it's just all that really dumb machismo crap. And like men cry, right? They're all, men don't cry, men cry. I'm sorry, men cry. If you have tear ducts, you're going to freaking cry. All right. That's what they're there for, just aside from cleaning your eyeballs. So, or keeping your eyeballs moist. But yeah, men feel emotional. Show me a man who was not emotional, you know, who was married for a gazillion years and didn't have any emotions when their spouse passed. You know, my father's not a person that outwardly shows his emotions, but, you know, he and I talked and he's like, yeah, I break down from time to time when no one's around. And I think that was a lot for him to admit. Okay, I mean, we had just been out at happy hour after, you know, and after that he admitted it. So, you know, he had a little bit of courage, liquid courage going on in there. Men do self-harm. Again, down here, each year, 4 times more men commit suicide than women. Now, I know there's a lot of different ways to say, because they say if you commit murder, but you don't commit suicide. And I think that's true, because, you know, when you say that, it's almost like someone's berating you or berating the person for taking their own life. So let's just say, you know, so we'll change that up. 4 times more men take their own lives than women. And part of that is because women tend to be the ones who are diagnosed, or who, and you know, when they say that all these men go undiagnosed, it's because a lot of times either they won't get help, they won't talk about it, or someone's just thinking, oh, it's the stress of your life. Well, everybody has life stresses. But when it starts to put you on the precipice of, you know, that cliff on whether to jump or not, you really have to reel it in and start thinking about, you know, if it's worth standing on that edge all the time and being stressed. You know, there's nothing bad about therapy. There's nothing wrong with therapy. You know, it's a place, it's a safe place. You know, it's a place where you can talk to somebody like you would talk to your friend, but they're not going to sit there and try to give you 5,000, you know, words of advice. Well, you should try this, or you should try that, or talk you out of how you're feeling. Your feelings are valid. Your feelings are valid. Whether you're a man or a woman, or however you identify, your feelings are valid. What you are feeling inside needs to be talked about. If you are feeling like you are literally standing on the edge of your own life, you need to talk to somebody. You need to get out there and get help, and you don't need to worry about what other people think. It takes so much strength to face our mental health. It is like, you know, one of my favorite Disney cartoons is Sleeping Beauty, right? And you have Prince Philip, and Prince Philip goes up and he faces the dragon. Now, to be honest with you, Maleficent is my favorite villain, but don't kill her. But no, seriously, he faces that dragon, and that's kind of what mental health is like. It is like facing that dragon, that fire-breathing, huge ass 50-foot dragon that's going to sit there and can just, you know, sneeze and kill you because, it's going to sneeze fire, right? I know that's a cartoon, but that's what it can feel like in real life. We have to be brave enough to cut through all those thorny bushes of stigma and to face the dragon. I mean, I do love dragons, so it's not my best. This is not my best examples because it's like, yeah, I love MILFs. Yeah, I love dragons. But seriously, we have to give ourselves that chance. Whether you were a man or a woman, and again, however you identify, just give yourself that chance, okay? Give yourself the opportunity to feel better and be better. To, just, I don't know, give yourself some hope. It's okay to reach out for help. And like I said, nowadays, help comes in all shapes and sizes. You can do it on your phone. You can do it through an app. You can have your doctor call you and do a webcam, session. There's so many options now. So many options. And all it really comes down to is whether or not you want to make that choice. So don't blame the world. Just face the dragon. Face that scary whatever it is that you don't like. And, get the help you need. I promise you, in the end, it's worth it. It can be hard work depending on what you're dealing with, where you're at in your healing journey. If you're starting on your healing journey, if you're midway, the last therapy sessions I had, to be honest with you, was because I felt stuck between being healed and moving forward. So I felt stuck between surviving and thriving. And I needed to figure out how to get out of my own way. And my therapist was very good. I'm very lucky because I do have therapists that like to participate, because they'll sit there and they don't tell me what to do, but they'll sit there and go, wait, didn't we just talk about this? You're doing it again. And they really kind of try to, I always tell people that therapy is like the tour guide through your mind. They're just there to point at things and and you get to perceive them as you choose to perceive them. You could be on a safari and see a lion, right? And somebody might go, oh my God, it's the fiercest creature in the world. It's going to eat me. And the person sitting right in front of you might go, wow, that is the most majestic creature I've ever seen in my life. Every male lion, though, I've ever seen, and I have to admit, I think the one I think about the most was the one at Disney World. Laziest ever. But yeah, so again, let's end the stigma of men's mental health. Let's hope that people are brave enough. And I do say brave enough. I'm sending out all the good vibes to people out there who really want to reach out for help, but feel so stigmatized by it, or feel like it's going to emasculate you, or it's going to, just whatever it is that you have come up with as a reason to not get help. It's not emasculating. Again, it's one of the strongest things you will ever have to do. And because it's not physical strength, it's mental strength, it can take a lot out of you and it can drain you, but it is going to be one of the best things you ever do for yourself. It is going to be 100% worth it. It truly, truly is, because everybody's mental health matters. Not just women, who are usually more diagnosed than men, but everybody across the board. Again, however you identify, male, female, otherwise, everybody's mental health matters, and everybody deserves that shot at feeling good in their own lives. They deserve to be walked away from the ledge. I stood on the ledge for many, many years. And like I said, a few times I almost decided to leap, and I didn't. A lot of factors were factored into that. A lot of divine intervention was going on there. So, and I'm grateful for that. But, I really do. When I read that approximately 1 in 10 men experience depression or anxiety, I actually thought it would be more. Fewer than half receive treatment. Each year, 4 times more men will take their lives than women. Over 6 million men suffer from depression per year, but male depression goes undiagnosed. And globally, men are less likely to be diagnosed with a mental health condition compared to a woman. Let's change that. All right. So I hope everybody has a wonderful, wonderful day. Don't know what we're going to talk about tomorrow, but I'm sure it'll be good. I don't know. Maybe I'll get something out of it too. I did get a lot out of this, and I want to thank again Unforgiven Warrior for sharing this. And I shared it also again, like I said, to my Twitter. But you can find me across the board. I'll be back here tomorrow morning, 8:30 a.m. Pacific time, Facebook Live. All lives are public. Anybody can watch. Yeah, it's under Shelly Marie Lucas. And again, you can find me across social media. All right. Have a great day, everybody. Thank you so much for watching. And remember, guys, take care of yourselves. All right. It takes a lot of strength to get help. Have a wonderful day.